on. First of all, we're going to have an informational briefing on the City of Topeka distinctive license plate. That came over as a Senate bill. It's being used in another manner. So I still want to have that hearing, and my intent is to probably entertain a motion to amend it into the Buffalo Soldier distinctive license plate. So when you guys see that going on, that's the reason we're doing it that way, and that's kind of what the game plan is if everybody's on board. So I'll now open the briefing on the City of Topeka distinctive license plate. And Chris, will you go over? You can do it from there if you want. License plate bills are easy to go over.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Committee, City of Topeka license plate, the original contents of Senate Bill 229, or how it's drafted right now, is provide for the City of Topeka license plate. License plate would be subject to the normal license plate requirements, regular license fees, and payment of the distinctive or personalized license plate fee of $40. Additionally, anyone who wants to apply for these plates would pay an annual flag image payment that is between $25 and $100. As I said, these plates would be subject to all the distinctive plate requirements, such as the initial issuance of 250 license plates and design costs up to $5,000. The City of Topeka flag would be the image displayed on the license plate and designed approved by the Director of Vehicles. Payments made, but those flag image payments made would be credited to a fund, which that fund would be paid to the Greater Topeka Partnership on a monthly basis. And the City of Topeka's designee for payments from the fund can change upon mutual agreement by the city and the Greater Topeka Partnership. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Does anybody have any questions for the revisor? Representative Delperdane.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Seems to me last year, did we not run a bill specifically for the license plate for the City of Topeka? And what happened? Did it get canceled? Did it not pass? It was run in conjunction with Hutchison, I believe. Thank you, Mr. Revisor.
Yes, it was. Those City of Hutchinson and City of Topeka were together. Throughout the committee process, the City of Topeka license plate was taken out. That was at the request of the city at the time. This is now kind of that bill again in its own form.
Yep. So you might ask some of the conferees from Topeka about that, in particular, how that happened. So with that, our first proponent is Curtis Sneeden. Did I say that right, Curtis? With Greater Topeka Chamber of Commerce.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. I am Curtis Sneeden, president of the Greater Topeka Chamber of Commerce. We're proud to speak in support of what was Senate Bill 229. We are big advocates of moving forward with this Topeka license plate. Bit of context, the Chamber of Commerce is part of a larger organization called the Greater Topeka Partnership. It includes the Chamber, our economic development group called Go Topeka, our Visitors Bureau, our downtown group, our Young Professionals group, which is called Forge. You'll be hearing more about their role in this in a little bit, and a number of other councils and task forces, all of which have a singular mission at the high level. We have our sights trained firmly on the future, and everything we are about is about making that future more prosperous for ourselves, for our kids and our grandkids. And what we've learned, as many of your communities have, is that economic development isn't just about bringing big companies to your town anymore. It has to be about making sure that your community is the sort of place where people would want to move and live and work and play and be proud to be a part of. From our point of view, making it possible for our citizens to express their pride through a Topeka license plate is just one more way that we can help on that broader mission. That's why we think it makes sense that the Greater Topeka Partnership is the recipient of the funds under this. We have really no concept of what those funds will be, and we didn't enter into this as a revenue proposition, but given that the flag design was originated by that Young Professionals group of ours that is called Forge Young Professionals, I think it's it seems fair to us that that's where the monies would come, because they will be used to do exactly what we're trying to accomplish, and that is grow this economy and make the future more prosperous. There are people here who are closer to the design and closer to that pride to be expressed, and I would like to give up my time for them, because you want to hear from some of the people who have come into the room to tell you about this. But I am happy to answer any questions if you've got them.
Do we have any questions? Did you want to address your question? Just
Thank you, Mr.
Representative Del-
Kind of same question. We ran this bill last year. I think it was tied in with the Hutch bill also. And for some reason, it was, I think, pulled back by the city. So what happened there? Why do we want to run it this year and we did not last year? What's changed?
May I defer to the city councilor, because she was on the ground in the discussions last year and this year. I have a point of view, but I think hers would be technically more fleshed out to answer your question. Would that be okay?
I don't know. I've sparred with her before and she's pretty intense. No, that'd be fine. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Any other questions at this time? Okay, thank you very much. Next, we'll be hearing from Amanda Stanley. She is the city attorney with the legal department of Topeka, Kansas. Welcome to the committee. In your new role, I guess you've been there 2 or 3 years now, haven't you?
About 2. Time goes fast. Well, thank you, Chairman, for allowing me to come testify today in support of this bill on behalf of the city of Topeka. You are correct. This is a bill originally that you saw in a different format last year. Last year, it was brought forth not by our actual community. It was brought forth by a different community, and the recipient last year was the zoo. There were lots of technical issues with it. For example, we are a unique community in the fact that we don't actually own our flag. Our flag was designed and put forth by our young professional organization, Forge, out of the Greater Topeka Partnership. And so we're also unique in that our city clerk's office is literally right across the street from the county where you can renew your tags. So there were issues with, we probably don't need people getting confused on which half of the parking lot to go to register for a license plate. So last year we asked for the bill to not be passed forward while we worked through some of those technical concerns. But it is a very exciting time in Topeka. And I say that because we're seeing this really outpouring of civic pride. This was not a bill that the city of Topeka came forward and said, our number one priority is a license plate. It was brought forth by young professionals in our community that said, we love where we live and we want to be able to demonstrate that on something like our car. If you go through our downtown, you will see flags everywhere. It's an open source design. Anyone can use it. So you see it on lanyards and t-shirts and earrings, painted on buildings. We do not control as the city the use of our flag because of that idea that the more open you make it, the more people will use it. And that ground swelling of support is what you actually want when you're working for civic pride. So at the beginning of this year, Senator O'Shea reached out through the Greater Topeka Partnership and said, hey, my constituents are calling me and they really want a flag. So can we make this happen? So we worked through the technical issues with Curtis. Our governing body was notified about this bill on multiple occasions. My city manager sent me over here to testify in its support because we did work out the technical solution so that this is something that really works well for the city of Topeka. And we would urge your support. And I'm happy to answer any other questions you may have.
Have any questions for Amanda? Representative Hoheisel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Amanda, for being here today. It's been a long time since I've seen you last, I think, in this room in Judiciary Committee. Thank goodness it's not Judiciary Committee anymore. What is the charity again, or the nonprofit that the proceeds will go into?
It goes to the Greater Topeka Partnership, which Curtis can speak to the history of it, but this is something that houses our various economic development arms, our young professionals, such as our Forge that developed the flag. It deals with our economic development issues downtown. It's a core group partnership of 5 different organizations that come together to help push forward development of Topeka.
So a amendment to establish a fund to fix the potholes in Topeka would be considered unfriendly, correct?
I will always take your money to fix potholes, so you can give me other money too.
Thank you, Amanda. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any other questions for Ms. Stanley? All right, seeing none. Thank you very much. Next on the agenda, we have Braden Warner, Topeka resident. Braden, welcome to the committee.
Hi there. Like the chairman said, thank you guys for having me, allowing me to testify. My name is Braden Warner. I'm a high school teacher at Shawnee Heights High School, and kind of as I testified in front of the Senate Transportation Committee, that a license plate, it doesn't seem like that big of a deal, but having something that you can display in your car no matter where you go, either other parts of the state, other parts of the country, and be able to display the civic pride that is burgeoning here in the city of Topeka is something that I think is a really cool idea. And as a young person who's chosen who I grew up here in Topeka, I chose to raise my family here. My wife and our two kids are going to go through schools here in Topeka. We're going to stay here in Topeka for as long as we can. And we, think that this is an excellent way to show the civic pride that, like I said, is really bustling right now in our city. So, any questions? I will.
Have any questions for Mr. Warner? Seeing none, thank you very much. Next, we have testimony from Lindsay Laban. Help me with that, Lindsay. Laban.
On the lay, I might adopt that.
Say it for me so that I can. Laban. Okay. Welcome to the committee, ma'am.
Thank you. So I'm Lindsay Laban. I was actually at the helm of Forge when we created the Topeka flag. So it's really exciting for me to be here to kind of come back and see it kind of go forward. I can give you guys a little brief history on it, but we started off as just a grassroots effort for that community pride. And we went out to this community and said, what do you want on your flag? We gave them some parameters, and we had submissions from nursing homes to elementary schools, crayons to like actual graphic artists. And it was so fun to see them all see what the community actually meant to them. We took it to a professional and got to see them work these ideas that the community members had into a flag. And through a voting process, got to the flag that we're at now. There's a ton of meaning behind it. Happy to rack my brain from 4 years ago when we were doing it, but the colors all are kind of a ode to our Kansas flag with the blue. You've got you've got it there? Okay. I don't have to do it. Thank you for saving me. But yes, so this is just kind of the next step, and I'm from Texas, so I obviously know flags, and we wear our flag really proudly. So I'm really excited to replace my Texas flag with now my Topeka flag. Happy to answer any questions.
Have any questions? All right, seeing none, thank you very much.
Thanks.
And the next testimony is from Zachary Surratt, the chair-elect of the Forge Young Talent. Zachary, welcome to the committee.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. My name is Zachary Surratt. I am the chair-elect of Forge Young Talent this year. You've heard a little bit about the Greater Topeka Partnership, so I want to talk about what Forge is. We are the young professionals organization situated under Go Topeka and the Greater Topeka Partnership. We work not only with young professionals, but with the entire community to make sure that Topeka and Shawnee County is a place where people want to live, work, play, as you heard Curtis say, but also a place where they can belong. And a sense of belonging is something that we can provide with the passage of this bill. It will allow us to kind of stamp Topeka in our daily lives. I know I'm going to be one of the first ones in line to get this new license plate once I can. I like to travel. A lot of young people like to get out of the community and adventure and spend their time seeing the world. And this allows us to, as I'm going around the world, advertise Topeka and spread awareness. We're really proud of the progress we've made in the last couple of years in Topeka, and we just want to show that off. So that's essentially what this will do, to help us create a sense of belonging for our community members. But the benefit to providing that money to the partnership, we obviously get money, and we're working. I don't know if you've seen in the last probably 5 years, the growth of our downtown, the growth of our communities, and we're not done there. The money that's used from this bill will be able to help us long-term further our projects with Momentum 2027, help us diversify our businesses, help us connect our communities, and make sure that we continue to grow for the next 5-10 years and beyond. So we really appreciate your support, and I will open it up to any questions that you have for me.
Does anybody have any questions for Zachary? All right. Oh, Representative Minix.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I applaud your civic mindedness. It seems like several weeks ago we had a discussion in this room about doing away with the county designation on our normal license plates. It seemed like some people were embarrassed about where they were from. I am tickled to see you guys are proud of your community, and I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Representative. I will say on that it's a great way to identify where people are from. If you're proud of it, display it, and we're super excited. Curtis passed me this kind of a design of what this will look like. I love it. It's hanging outside my front door, and I've got T-shirts and everything. So you see it all the time. I want to bring it with me everywhere I go.
Any other questions, comments? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, that's all the testimony that I show. Are there any other proponents that would like to speak? Any opponents? Any neutrals? All right. With that, we'll move on to the hearing on SB 132, providing for the Buffalo Soldier distinctive license plate. Revisor Wagner, would you give us an overview?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senate Bill 132 would provide for the Buffalo Soldier distinctive license plate, a sort of standard distinctive plate subject to all the requirements, including the initial issuance of 250 license plates and design costs up to $5,000 and payment of the personalized license plate fee. Also, an applicant would pay a fee between $25 and $100 set by the Richard Allen Cultural Center and Museum. Those payments would go to the Richard Allen Cultural Center and Museum and made on a monthly basis. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Do we have any questions for the revisor? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to our testimony. First proponent conferee would be Senator Jeff Pittman. Welcome to the committee, Senator Pittman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Chair, Vice Chair, Ranking, and each and every one of you. I gotta thank you all for your service to our state. And appreciate the expeditious method of getting this hearing out here. This license plate, like the prior ones, it's about showing distinct pride in something in our United States. The Buffalo Soldiers were the African American soldiers created back in 1866, and that included the 9th and 10th Cavalry Regiment. They were all African American, all black cavalry units and infantry units that were commissioned to go out and fight what was then the Indian Wars, Native Americans, and they had a tough time of it. It's a story of perseverance, courage, and resilience in the face of adversity. And the adversity wasn't just the external threat to the troops, but often came from the internal ranks where they weren't necessarily integrated into the Army and often fought with substandard equipment. But they did this with respect, dignity, and with strength. They were named the Buffalo Soldiers because of how ferocious they were in their battles. Named by the Native Americans when they came up against them, because buffaloes, as you'll hear, they can run at 35 miles per hour. They'll target you and charge immediately and trample everything in their path. So they were a unit. They fought inside of the Spanish-American Wars. They fought World War I, World War II, until Truman came up with the reintegration or the Integration Act, where they disbanded all the black units, and we then in 50s had full integration. The reason this is coming, we have in Fort Leavenworth a big statue to the Buffalo Soldiers. It's on the base, and the license plate would have an image of that in a circle. I think it's on the back of my testimony if I included it properly. And that was put in place back in 1992. Colin Powell led the efforts to have it there. It has become that, and the Richard Allen Cultural Center, as well as some of the stops along the Underground Railroad, have become a source of tourism into the African American experience in the United States. We in Leavenworth have visitors from all over the country who come in. Motorcycle clubs that are named the Buffalo Soldiers come in for particular, coming back to review the history there. And so that's why we're looking at this. We're looking at this to honor the Buffalo Soldiers that have a distinct tie to both Leavenworth and Kansas. Now, the money would be going to Richard Allen Cultural Center, and one of the conferees behind me will speak to them. It's Edna Wagner. She's the director, executive director there. They perpetuate the history of the African American experience in the region, and in particular, they live in, or they're situated inside of an old Buffalo Soldier home, and so they tell part of the story. They also have outreach in the community. She'll speak to that. The other part of this story is that the Fort Leavenworth Museum, called the Frontier Museum, is the Army is saying, hey, look, we'd like to make this into a private entity, and we'd like to see this situated on the outside of the fort. It's a little difficult to get in if you're not, military into the fort. You have to go through a pass process, and to help tell the story of the U.S. Army, and in particular the Buffalo Soldier, they see it as an advantage to have the reimagined Frontier Museum positioned outside the gates. And so a portion of this would be redirected from the Richard Allen Cultural Center into that new museum as it starts forming its fund status. So once again, appreciate it. This is about telling the story of the Buffalo Soldiers, keeping that story alive, and talking about having dignity and courage in the face of adversity. So I appreciate your support on this, Mr. Chair. Stand for any questions.
Does anybody have any questions for Senator Pittman? Okay, seeing none, thank you very much. Next conferee is George Pettigrew, Executive Vice President of the Alexander Madison Chapter of Buffalo Soldiers. Welcome to the committee.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Migrating birds darken the sky, massive herds of buffalo crossing the open plains of what would become the great state of Kansas darken the earth below. The hooves of these mighty American bison churn the soil beneath them, creating fertile bounty of new life. In times past, these mighty migrating herds numbered in the tens of millions and were a major support system for the indigenous inhabitants of what would become the great state of Kansas. In times past, these mighty migrating herds numbered in tens of millions and were a major supply system for the indigenous inhabitants of these lands living in harmony dependent on these mighty beasts for food, fuel, clothing, shelter, tools, and many other items necessary in their life. Not only is the iconic animal the official state mammal of the state of Kansas since 1955, the buffalo is also reflected in the Kansas state flag and seal. It was featured on the U.S. Bicentennial Kansas Commemorative Quarter in 2005 and became the national mammal in 2016. This magnificent animal is also the largest land mammal in the Western Hemisphere, almost 6 feet tall and over a ton in weight that can outrun a horse. With the American bison so well recognized and respected in indigenous cultures as well as our own, it is remarkable that only one special group ever carried these magnificent animals in the name as their own, the Buffalo Soldiers. On the 28th of July in 1866, the Army Reorganization Act set in motion the path of the Buffalo Soldier in American history and in the imagination of the world. Looking for the heroes of the Old West, the Western frontier, and taming of the Old West, it appears that these soldiers were headed for dissolution in the records of history. To the credit of the veterans of who both suffered and prospered under the nickname, they never let the contributions of these unique American soldiers fade from memory. The World War II veterans from Leavenworth and Kansas City organized the world's first Buffalo Soldier chapter on the 28th of July in 1966, with the famed 10th Cavalry formed at Fort Leavenworth. Moving further into the heartland of Kansas in August of 1867 to Fort Riley. These troops were the first African American soldiers to engage in battle with the Native Americans twice while in troop movements to Fort Larned, Kansas, during the Indian Wars. Today, we continue to serve our nation and its valued history by working in a public-private partnership with the United States Army, the Army Center of Military History, and Fort Leavenworth, Kansas, to fund, construct, and install an entirely new and reimagined Frontier Army Museum. This standing tribute to the contributions and the central importance of Fort Leavenworth to the state of Kansas will showcase the incredible significance it's made to world history and to the posterity of the United States of America. This unique combined effort will produce an entirely new and exciting destination at Fort Leavenworth on federal land, but outside the gates and fence line for greater public access, drawing visitors near and far to Kansas and Fort Leavenworth. This museum will honor the Buffalo Soldiers and coordinate with the Buffalo Soldier Monument and the Circle of First, started by the late General and Secretary of State Colin Powell. The state of Kansas honoring the Buffalo Soldiers with a license plate featuring these unique soldiers will be a destination unlike any other in their long history. I am here in support of the creation of a Kansas state license plate, bestowing recognition on these soldiers who fought discrimination and for a better life for all, from the Indian Wars until the Korea, when the full integration put the Buffalo Soldiers to rest. I support the initiative. I have the Buffalo Soldiers featured on the Kansas Buffalo Soldiers featured on the Kansas license plate. And as an oral historian, a veteran, and a direct descendant of an original Buffalo soldier, following the release from slavery, enlisted in the 38th Infantry on May 6, 1867, and later serving with the 9th Cavalry. My great-grandfather, Private Isaac Johnson, while stationed at Fort Harker, Kansas, was detailed to guard the U.S. mail to New Mexico. His detachment fell under surprise attack at Cow Creek Crossing along the Santa Fe Trail in Rice County, 4 miles west of Lyon, Kansas. He survived the attack, but was wounded in the right shoulder. Nevertheless, continued his mission for another 452 miles to Fort Union, New Mexico, where he received proper medical attention. This is but one isolated example of the valor and sacrifice of these sometime underrepresented patriots of Kansas history and that of America. This is a recognition that supports the unity of understanding the contributions of all Americans in making America the greatest nation in the history of the world. I therefore urge the Kansas House Transportation Committee, under the leadership of Chairman Francis, to make this initiative a reality. I urge your approval of the creation of a Kansas State Buffalo Soldier license plate. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Do we have any questions? Seeing none, great job.
Thank you,
for your testimony.
Thank you all.
Next on the agenda, we have Edna Wagner, the Executive Director of the Richard Allen Cultural Center. Welcome to the committee, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you to everyone that's here to hear what we have to say today in reference to the license plate that we're trying to get passed so that the history of the Buffalo Soldiers are not buried away, put in a drawer, or not a part of American history. As the Executive Director of the Richard Allen Cultural Center, I support the Bill 132 to establish the Buffalo Soldier license plate. This plate will serve as a publication so that people can understand the story about the Buffalo Soldiers and what they have contributed to American history. As the beneficiary of the license plate, the Richard Allen Cultural Center, these funds will be used for the continuing of research for American history by African Americans. Also, we run an after-school tutoring and mentoring program. Our youth in our community and surrounding areas that attend our program is a part of that benefit of helping them learn more and more about American history and the contributions that African Americans have given, especially the Buffalo Soldiers. As we all know, we're all, as I call us, well seasoned, but our young folks are young. So they're clueless to the American history. And a lot of it is not taught in school. So sharing this and they seeing that license plate on someone's car, that question, someone will ask the question, what is this about? Where did this happen? And why did it happen? Our youth need to know. These benefits will make a difference for us. So sharing that will allow us to continue our growth, our research, and what we need to provide for our future. Not just looking at the past, but we're looking at our present and our future, and our young folks will be our future. The Richard Allen Cultural Center has artifacts that is housed by Colin Powell, General Colin Powell. You know, when he passed away, no one had his uniform, but the Richard Allen Cultural Center stood tall to share that rich history. Now we house more artifacts, and we just received Lieutenant Milford, General Milford from Fort Leavenworth, who is now the post commander. The educational programs, there's no words to say to that. No more than we want to continue to follow what we need to do to make our education programs better for the Richard Allen Cultural Center and for the schools around us. Our mission and our purpose is to educate the public about the rich history of African Americans and the contributions that and the phases of life that they have been a part of. We promote awareness for African American heritage, research, culture, and activities, and enhance the interracial understanding of where we come from. So I urge each and every one of you to please think about this license plate and what it will mean to the soldiers, to their family members who are still here, who are thinking about them and what they have given up to make us make it a safe place for us to be in, because they came before many others, and many of them are gone. So thank you all today for allowing me to come and be a part of what you're making your decision on. And we hope that your decision will be in favor of this license plate that will continue history. And it's not just for Leavenworth, it is for the state of Kansas. Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you, Ms. Wagner. Does anybody have any questions? Representative Ballard.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Wagner, and certainly Mr. Pettigrew as well. I think you made a very poignant point a few minutes ago. The future, as well as our present and our past, is extremely important. And that's an education process. And sometimes when you're young, when you see something, you want to know more about it. But I think the value is what the Buffalo Soldiers did. That
Exactly.
people should know, that they should realize that they were fighting for our country the same as others in the process. And I thank you both and whoever you brought with you for letting us know. Because you know what we've always talked about? Not only do you have to speak up, but you have to show up. And I think that's what you did today. And certainly when I think about our senator today, your testimony was very inspiring.
Thank you.
And I thank you very much. But just thank you for coming, and know that there are descendants, as you mentioned, but also people who were not descendants, but have heard of the Buffalo Soldiers and their bravery.
And I'd also like to share, in 1992, we opened our doors. Our museum sits in the home of an original Buffalo soldier, last name Captain William D. Bly, and his son was a lieutenant as a Buffalo soldier, and his name is Albert Bly. So if you ever want to know more about the Buffalo Soldiers, see how they lived, please stop by 412 Kiowa Street in Leavenworth, Kansas. We are there. And we know you all work long hours, so just call us. We'll make it a time to let you come in and share what we can't show you here, what we have there. So we would appreciate any of you stopping by. Bring your children, bring your grandchildren, bring kids who you just know in the neighborhood and you want to share what you do and what happens in history in our world. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Representative Weigel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for your presentation. Is the center that you have, is that actually on the?
No, it's on public property. It's at 412 Kiowa Street. And when the new museum come along, you'll have the best of both worlds. You'll be able to come 2 blocks and actually come into the home of the Buffalo Soldiers.
Oh, okay.
And Kathy Williams also is on our property. She sits in the garden on the south lawn. First African-American female documented to serve with the Buffalo Soldiers.
All right. I was a little confused on that. So thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, thank you very much for your testimony, ma'am.
Thank you all.
All right, do we have any other proponent conferees? I don't see any others on the list. Any opponents? Any neutrals? All right, I'll go ahead and close the hearing on SB 132. All right, committee, tomorrow we're going to have an informational hearing on a Kansas City Area Transportation Authority and the Kansas Department of Transportation transit mode. For those of you that don't have other obligations. And then when we get Monday, I plan on having a hearing on SB 130, which would require certain license plates to be on all motor vehicle tags. That's one that came from the Senate. You know, earlier this year, we heard one that said no county designations on the tags. So we'll see the other side of that one on Monday. And I also intend to work the city of Topeka distinctive license plate by possibly amending it in, if it's the committee's will, amending it into the Buffalo Soldier distinctive license plate. And then we'll also work the airbag bill we heard earlier, SB 106 and SB 143, the ground effect lighting. So that's kind of what we have coming forward. So put it on your calendar. We will meet Monday, and we'll have an informational hearing tomorrow. Is there anything else for the committee? If not, we're adjourned. Thank you.